Sign it. Emma Whitmore's hand froze above the paper. $300. That's what her life was worth. Enough to bury her father and keep her siblings alive through Montana winter. 19 years old, sold to a widower with 5 children she'd never met. Her mother sobbed in the corner. The attorney's pen scratched impatiently. Emma signed. The stagecoach left at dawn. She didn't look back. What waited at Silver Creek Ranch would become the most whispered story in Willow Springs. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. You understand what you're agreeing to? The attorney didn't look up from his papers. I understand. Say it, for the record. Emma's throat tightened. I agree to marry Nathaniel Callahan of Silver Creek Ranch in exchange for $300 paid to my family. And you enter this arrangement willingly. Willingly. The word tasted like ash. Her father was 3 days dead. Her mother hadn't eaten in 2. Her 14-year-old brother was already talking about working the mines. Yes. Mr. Pendleton stamped the document. The stagecoach leaves tomorrow at dawn. Mr. Callahan's foreman will collect you in Willow Springs. The marriage will be performed upon arrival. That's it. What else did you expect, Miss Whitmore? A courtship? He finally met her eyes. You're not a bride. You're a solution to a problem. 5 motherless children need raising. A ranch needs running. You need money. Everyone gets what they want. Except a choice. Choice is for the wealthy. He slid the document into a folder. Your copy will be mailed to your mother. Good day. Emma stood. Her legs felt strange, disconnected, like they belonged to someone else. Her mother waited outside, hunched against the November wind. Catherine Whitmore had aged 10 years in the past week. Her eyes were swollen, her hands raw from wringing. Is it done? It's done. Catherine's face crumpled. Emma, I'm so sorry. Don't. Emma's voice came out harder than intended. Don't apologize. It doesn't change anything. If there was any other way, there isn't. We both know that. Emma started walking toward their borrowed wagon. I need to pack. The coach leaves at dawn. Emma, please. She kept walking. That night, Emma sat in the room she'd slept in since childhood. Tomorrow, it would belong to someone else. The new family buying their land had 3 sons. They'd probably turn it into storage. She owned 1 trunk. 1. Everything else had been sold weeks ago to pay for medicine that hadn't worked. Into the trunk went 3 dresses. Her mother's Bible. A worn copy of Jane Eyre. A daguerreotype of her father from before the sickness hollowed him out. That was it. 19 years of life, and it fit in a single trunk. A knock at the door. Emma. Her brother Samuel's voice cracking the way it did lately as he fought his way toward manhood. Can I come in? It's open. He slipped inside, all gangly limbs and serious eyes. 14 years old and already carrying weight no child should bear. I heard what you did. It's not a secret. You sold yourself. His voice shook. For us, you sold yourself to a stranger. I made an arrangement. It's the same thing. Samuel crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing her shoulders. Emma, you can't do this. I'll work. I'll find something. The mines are hiring and I'm strong enough. The mines killed Papa. That was different. He was already sick. Samuel. Emma gripped his wrists, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. You're 14. Patience is 10. Mama can barely stand. If I don't do this, you all die. It's that simple. But what about you? I'll survive. She released him, turning back to her packing. I always do. You don't even know him. This Callahan. He could be cruel. He could be... He's a widower with 5 children who needs someone to care for them. He's not buying a wife. He's hiring a mother. Emma closed her trunk with a decisive click. The attorney said his reputation is solid, fair with his workers, devoted to his children. That's more than many women get. It's not enough. It's what there is. Samuel stood there, fists clenched, tears streaming down his face. He was trying so hard to be a man, trying so hard to fix things he couldn't fix. Emma pulled him into a fierce hug. Take care of them, Mama, and Patience. That's your job now. I should be taking care of you. You are, by letting me do this. She pulled back, forcing a smile she didn't feel. Write to me. Tell me everything. I want to know about your life. Every boring, wonderful detail. Emma. Promise me. He swallowed hard. I promise. Good. She kissed his forehead. Now go. I need to sleep. Early start tomorrow. He left. Emma sat on her bed and stared at the wall until her candle burned down to nothing. The stagecoach was cold. 3 days of rattling over frozen roads, watching the landscape grow wilder with each passing mile. The other passengers kept to themselves. A drummer with his sample cases. A widow in black. A cowboy who smelled of whiskey and regret. Emma didn't speak to any of them. What was there to say? On the morning of the third day, Willow Springs appeared through the frost-covered window. A small town, a single main street, a church steeple against gray sky. Her new home. A man waited beside a wagon hat in his weathered hands. Miss Whitmore. Yes. Ezra Hawkins, foreman at Silver Creek. Mr. Callahan sent me. He didn't come himself. Something flickered across Ezra's face. He's got his hands full with the young ones, and the ranch don't run itself. He loaded her trunk, helped her onto the wagon seat. The horses stamped impatiently, breath fogging in the cold air. Storm's coming. Ezra nodded toward the dark clouds massing on the horizon. First big one of the season, we best get moving. They rode in silence for several miles. The road wound through a valley flanked by mountains, beautiful and savage. Emma had never seen country like this. It looked like the edge of the world. What are they like? She asked finally. The children. Ezra's hands tightened on the reins. Tom's 9. Acts like he's 40. Been trying to run that household since his mama died. Works himself sick. And the others? Rosie's 7. She don't talk. Not since she watched her mama die. Ezra's jaw tightened. Will's 5. Good boy but gets lost in the shuffle. Grace is 3, scared of everything. And Ellie? The baby. 2.5. Never knew her mama. His voice softened. She's the only light in that house, Miss Whitmore. The only thing keeping everybody going. Emma absorbed this. 5 wounded children. A grieving father. A house full of ghosts. What about him, Mr. Callahan? Ezra was quiet for a long moment. Nate Callahan is the finest man I ever knew. Honest, hardworking, loyal. When his wife died, something in him died too. He glanced at Emma. He ain't buying a wife, Miss Whitmore. He's buying a chance for his children to have something like a normal life. That's all he wants. All he can want anymore. And what about what I want? With respect, ma'am. Ezra's voice was gentle. That ain't part of the equation. The ranch appeared as the sun dropped toward the mountains. 2-story house, big red barn, smoke rising from the chimney. Before the wagon stopped, the front door burst open. A little girl, 3 years old. Dark curls, enormous brown eyes, thumb jammed in her mouth. She froze when she saw Emma. That's Grace, Ezra said quietly. Don't expect much from her. She don't warm up to strangers. Emma climbed down from the wagon. Her legs ached from days of travel. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She crouched to Grace's level. Hello? I'm Emma. Grace stared, didn't blink, didn't move. Then slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and touched Emma's face. Small fingers traced her cheek like she was checking if Emma was real. Pretty, Grace whispered, and grabbed Emma's hand. From the doorway, a boy's voice cut through the moment. That's Miss Whitmore, Tom, 9 years old, face like stone, eyes like his father's, guarded, suspicious. I know why you're here, he said flatly. Papa explained. Then you know more than I do. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. He'd expected her to pretend, to play nice. Tom, take your brother and sisters inside. A new voice. Deep, rough, commanding. Emma turned. Nathaniel Callahan stood at the corner of the house, having come from the barn. Snow dusted his dark hair. His coat was worn, his boots muddy. His face was weathered beyond his 29 years, carved by grief into something hard and distant. But his eyes burned. Miss Whitmore. Mr. Callahan. They stared at each other. Strangers bound by a contract, a transaction in human flesh. Children. Inside, now. Tom gathered his siblings. Grace clung to Emma's hand until the last moment, reluctant to let go. Then they were gone, and Emma was alone with the man she'd been sold to. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. She followed him toward the barn, away from the house, away from listening ears. The cold bit through her thin coat. Her boots crunched on frozen ground. Nate stopped beside the corral fence. His hands gripped the top rail, knuckles white. I need to tell you something. I'm listening. I didn't want this. His voice was rough. Bringing a stranger into my home, into my children's lives. I fought it for 2 years. Told myself I could manage alone. But you couldn't. No. The word sounded torn from him. Tom's killing himself trying to be the man of the house. Rosie hasn't spoken since she watched her mother die in front of her. Grace screams if I leave her sight. Will's angry all the time, and I don't know why. And Ellie... He stopped. Swallowed. Ellie needs a mother. They all do. I can't give them that. I don't know how. So you bought one? Yes. He finally looked at her. Does that disgust you? Emma considered the question carefully. Did it disgust her? Being purchased like livestock? Being brought here to fill a dead woman's shoes? No, she said slowly. It doesn't disgust me. It makes me sad. For all of us. Sad? You lost your wife. Your children lost their mother. I lost my future. She met his gaze steadily. We're all grieving something, Mr. Callahan. We're all paying a price we didn't choose. Being disgusted would be a waste of energy I don't have. He stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but recognition. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone weaker, someone who'd cry and complain and make this harder than it already is. I cried plenty before I got here. I don't have any tears left. Emma turned to face the mountains, the gathering storm, the wild country that was now her home. So here's what I need to know. Will you treat me with basic human respect? Yes. Will your children be allowed to love me, or will I always be the intruder? That's up to them, and you. Will you? She hesitated. Will you expect me to share your bed? Silence, long and heavy. No. His voice dropped. Not unless you want to. Not ever unless you want to. Good. Emma exhaled slowly. Then we understand each other. The Reverend comes tomorrow at 9. After that, you'll be my wife. Yes. The house is yours to run as you see fit. The children need structure, discipline, warmth, whatever you think is best. And you? I'll be in the barn, in the fields, wherever the work is. He pushed off from the fence. I'm not good company, Miss Whitmore. I haven't been for a long time. You'll find it easier if you don't expect much from me. I told you, I stopped expecting things a long time ago. He nodded once. Welcome to Silver Creek Ranch. Then he walked away, disappearing into the barn, leaving her alone with the coming storm. The house was quiet when Emma entered. Too quiet for a home with 5 children. She found them in the main room, gathered around the fireplace, in a tableau of grief. Tom stood rigid by the mantel. Rosie sat perfectly still in a rocking chair, gray eyes vacant. Will lay on the floor with a carved wooden horse, But he wasn't playing, just holding it. Grace had wedged herself into a corner, thumb and mouth watching. And in a cradle by the hearth, a baby with red curls slept peacefully. Ellie. The one who would never remember her mother. "I'm hungry." Will's voice broke the silence. "When's supper?" Tom's face tightened. "I'll make something." "No." Emma moved toward the kitchen. "I'll do it. Tom, show me where things are." "I don't need help." "I didn't say you did. I said show me where things are." Emma kept her voice calm but firm. "This is my job now. Let me do it." Tom's jaw clenched. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then something in him crumbled just slightly, and he nodded. The kitchen was well stocked, but chaotic. Emma found flour, potatoes, preserved vegetables, salt pork. Simple ingredients. She could work with this. "There's eggs in the cold cellar." Tom's voice was grudging. "And butter. Mrs. Patterson brought bread yesterday." "That's a good start." Emma began organizing her hands, finding rhythm in the familiar work. "How long since you had a proper hot meal?" "We eat fine." "That's not what I asked." Tom was quiet for a moment. "Mama used to make stew, with dumplings, on Sundays." "I can make stew with dumplings." "It won't taste the same." "No, it won't." Emma stopped, turning to face him. "Tom, I'm not here to replace your mother. Nobody could do that. I'm here to help, that's all. Papa says you're going to be our stepmother. I'm going to be someone who takes care of you. What you call me is up to you." He studied her with those two old eyes, weighing, judging. "Will says you're pretty. He thinks that's important." "What do you think?" "I think pretty doesn't keep people alive." Emma almost smiled. "You're right, it doesn't. Being smart keeps people alive. Being strong. Being willing to do what needs doing." She turned back to her work. "You want to help me peel these potatoes?" A long pause. Then Tom stepped up beside her and reached for a knife. They worked in silence, side by side. It wasn't comfort. It wasn't trust. But it was something. Supper was simple. Fried potatoes and eggs. The bread Mrs. Patterson had brought, preserved apple butter Emma found in the pantry. Not a feast, but hot and filling. The children ate like they hadn't seen food in weeks. Even Rosie, silent and staring, cleaned her plate mechanically. Will asked for seconds. Grace actually smiled when Emma put more butter on her bread. "Where's Papa?" Will asked with his mouth full. "In the barn." Tom's voice was flat. "He always eats in the barn. I'll bring him a plate later." Emma made a mental note. Father who couldn't face his own table. Another problem to solve. After supper, she tackled the dishes while Tom put the younger ones to bed. Emma could hear him upstairs, his young voice reading a story, the creak of floorboards as he checked each room. 9 years old, playing parent. It wasn't right. The kitchen was clean when Nate finally came in. Snow crusted his shoulders. His face was red from cold. "There's a plate warming for you." Emma didn't look up from wiping down the table. "Potatoes and eggs. Bread's on the counter." He stood in the doorway, uncertain, like he didn't know how to exist in his own house anymore. "You didn't have to." "It's my job now, remember." He moved to the stove, lifted the plate. Stared at it like he'd forgotten what food was for. The children. Fed and in bed. Tom's reading to them. Emma wrung out her cloth and hung it to dry. "He's exhausted, Mr. Callahan. That boy is running on nothing." "He likes to help." "He thinks he has to. There's a difference." Nate's jaw tightened. "You've been here 3 hours, and you're already criticizing how I raise my children." "I'm making an observation. Take it however you want." Emma turned to face him. "Your son is 9 years old, and he's acting like he's responsible for this entire family. Your daughter hasn't spoken in 6 months. Your other daughter is terrified you're going to disappear. Your youngest son is starving for attention, and your baby needs someone to love her." She crossed her arms. "Did I miss anything?" You forgot to mention what a failure I am. I wasn't going to say that. Weren't you? They stared at each other across the kitchen. Two exhausted people at the end of impossible days. No. Emma's voice softened. I was going to say you're surviving. And surviving is hard. And you shouldn't have to do it alone. She moved toward the door. I'm going to bed. The Reverend comes at 9. Yes. I'll be ready. She paused at the threshold. Mr. Callahan. What? Thank you. For the honest conversation earlier. I know this isn't what either of us wanted, but I think maybe we can make it work, if we're both willing to try. He didn't answer, but something in his expression shifted just slightly from guarded to uncertain. It was enough. Emma climbed the stairs to the dead woman's room. She didn't sleep, but she didn't cry either. Tomorrow she would be married. Tomorrow everything would change. Tonight she just had to get through the night. The bedroom still smelled of lavender. Margaret Callahan's things surrounded Emma like ghosts. A hairbrush on the dresser, strands of red hair still caught in the bristles. A half-finished embroidery by the window. A Bible on the nightstand, pages worn soft from daily reading. Emma lay in the dead woman's bed staring at the ceiling. Through the wall, she heard a child crying. Grace, the scared one. Footsteps in the hall. Nate's voice murmuring comfort. The crying gradually faded. Then silence. Emma closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would become Mrs. Nathaniel Callahan. Mother to 5 children who weren't hers. Mistress of a house still haunted by its true mistress. Tomorrow her old life would end completely. But tonight, just for tonight, she let herself remember. Her father's laugh before the sickness took it. Her mother's lullabies. Samuel's terrible jokes. Patience's gap-toothed smile. The schoolhouse she'd dreamed of. The children she'd wanted to teach. The life she'd planned so carefully, now gone like smoke. Tomorrow, she would be strong. Tomorrow, she would face her new reality and make the best of it. But tonight, alone in a stranger's house, wearing a stranger's nightgown, surrounded by a stranger's memories, Emma Whitmore allowed herself one last luxury. She mourned. And when dawn finally broke over the mountains, pale and cold, she rose from that bed a different person, ready for whatever came next. The Reverend arrived at 8:30, stamping snow off his boots on the front porch. Emma watched him through the kitchen window where she'd been scrubbing the same pot for 20 minutes. Miss Whitmore, Tom's voice behind her. Papa says it's time. She set down the pot, dried her hands on her apron, took a breath that didn't quite fill her lungs. I'm ready. She wasn't ready. How could anyone be ready for this? The main room had been cleared of clutter. Someone had placed fresh pine branches on the mantel, their sharp scent cutting through the stale air of grief. The children stood in a row by the fireplace, scrubbed and dressed in what must have been their Sunday clothes. Even baby Ellie was awake, perched on Tom's hip, gnawing on her fist. Nate stood by the window, his back to the room. He wore a dark suit that fit poorly, probably borrowed or dragged from storage. His shoulders were rigid. Ah, the bride. Reverend Whitfield was a portly man with kind eyes and a voice that carried. Come, come, my dear. Let's get you two properly wed before this storm hits. Emma crossed to stand beside Nate. He didn't look at her. Dearly beloved, the Reverend began, we are gathered here in the sight of God to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. The words washed over Emma like water. She heard them without processing them. Something about honor, something about cherish, something about till death do us part. Death had already parted this family once. It hung in the room like a presence, that other woman, that other wife, whose place Emma was taking. Do you, Nathaniel James Callahan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Nate's jaw tightened. I do. And do you, Emmeline Catherine Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Emma's voice came out steadier than she expected. I do. Then by the power vested in me by God and the Montana Territory, I pronounce you man and wife. The Reverend closed his Bible. You may kiss the bride. Silence. Nate turned to face her for the first time. His eyes were unreadable. He leaned forward, and for a terrible moment, Emma thought he might actually kiss her properly. Instead, his lips brushed her cheek. Quick. Impersonal. Done. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan. The Reverend was already reaching for his coat. I'd best be going before the weather turns. God bless this union. And just like that, it was over. Emma Whitmore was gone. In her place stood Emma Callahan, wife, stepmother, stranger in a strange land. The Reverend left. The door closed behind him. The room fell silent except for the pop and crackle of the fire. Well, Nate said, that's done. Such romantic words. Emma might have laughed if she'd remembered how. Papa? Will tugged at his father's coat. Does this mean she's our mama now? She's your stepmother. What's the difference? Nate opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Emma helplessly. The difference, Emma said carefully, is that I didn't give birth to you, but I'm going to take care of you just the same. Is that all right? Will considered this. I guess. Can you make pancakes? I can make pancakes. Mama used to make pancakes. With honey. Then I'll make them with honey. Will nodded, apparently satisfied. He wandered off to play the profound event of his father's remarriage, already forgotten, in the face of more important concerns, like pancakes. Grace hadn't moved from her spot by the fireplace. She still had her thumb in her mouth, but her eyes tracked Emma's every movement. Grace. Emma crouched to her level. Are you all right? The little girl removed her thumb long enough to whisper, You stay. Yes, I'm staying. Promise? The word hit Emma like a physical blow. This child had already lost one mother. She was terrified of losing another. I promise. Grace nodded solemnly. Then she crossed the space between them and climbed into Emma's lap, curling up like a kitten seeking warmth. Her small body trembled slightly. Emma held her. What else could she do? Over Grace's head she saw Nate watching. His expression was strange, pained, like he was seeing something he'd thought was lost forever. Then he turned and walked out the door, slamming behind him. Tom's voice cut through the moment. He always does that. Goes to the barn when things get too much. I know. Are you going to fix him? Emma looked at the boy, 9 years old, carrying the weight of the world, asking her to perform miracles. I don't know if anyone can fix someone else, she said honestly. But I'm going to try to help. All of you. Tom's expression flickered. Doubt, hope, fear. All tangled together. Rosie's the hardest, he said quietly. She used to talk all the time. Now she just watches, like she's waiting for something terrible to happen. Emma looked at Rosie, still sitting in the rocking chair, still silent, still staring at nothing. What was she like before? Happy, loud. She asked questions about everything. Drove Mama crazy sometimes. Tom's voice cracked. She was right there when Mama died, held her hand, watched her stop breathing. Emma's chest tightened. 7 years old, watching your mother die. And no one could get through to her after. Papa tried. The doctor tried. Reverend Whitfield prayed over her. Tom shrugged, but the gesture was too casual, too practiced. Nothing works. She's just gone, even though she's still here. Emma gently shifted Grace off her lap. The little girl whimpered in protest, but allowed herself to be settled into a chair. Then Emma crossed to where Rosie sat. The girl didn't react, didn't look up, didn't acknowledge Emma's presence in any way. Emma sat down on the floor beside the rocking chair, not touching, not demanding, just present. I'm not going to ask you to talk, Emma said softly. I'm not going to try to fix you, or pray over you, or tell you everything's going to be all right. I'm just going to sit here with you, that's all. Nothing. No response. No flicker of awareness. But Emma noticed Rosie's hand resting on the arm of the chair relaxed slightly. Just a fraction, just enough. It was something. The storm hit that afternoon. Emma had never seen snow like this. It came sideways, driven by wind that howled around the house like something alive and angry. Within an hour, the barn was invisible. Within 2, the world had disappeared entirely into a wall of white. "We're stuck," Tom announced, nose pressed to the window. "This could last days." "Then we'll manage." Emma was already taking stock. Food, water, firewood. Is there enough wood by the hearth? Enough for tonight. Papa usually brings more, but Papa was in the barn, trapped there by the storm, or hiding there. Emma suspected even before the weather gave him an excuse. "Show me where the woodpile is." "You can't go out in this." "I'm not going out, I just need to know where it is, for when the storm breaks." Tom relaxed slightly. "Side of the house, under a tarp. Papa keeps it stocked." "Good. What about food?" "Root cellar's full. Mrs. Patterson brought supplies last week, and there's preserved stuff in the pantry." Emma nodded. They would survive. The question was whether they'd do more than survive. "All right. Here's what's going to happen. Tom, I need you to check on the fire every hour. Make sure it doesn't get too low. Your job is to keep your sisters entertained. Can you do that?" Will puffed up importantly. "I can do that." "Good. Grace, I need you to help me with baby Ellie. Can you hand me things when I ask?" Grace nodded, thumb still firmly in mouth. "And Rosie?" Emma paused. "Rosie, I'm going to put you in charge of watching for breaks in the storm. If you see the snow letting up, you come tell me." "All right." No verbal response, but Rosie's head turned slightly toward the window. She was listening. Tasks assigned, Emma headed for the kitchen. There was bread to bake, soup to make, a household to run. No time for self-pity, no time for regret. Just work. She was elbow-deep in bread dough when Grace appeared at her side. "Hungry?" "Soup's almost ready. Can you wait a few more minutes?" Grace considered this seriously. "I wait." "Good girl." Emma kept kneading. "Grace, can I ask you something?" A tiny nod. "What was your mama like?" Grace's face crumpled. For a moment, Emma thought she'd made a terrible mistake. "Warm," Grace whispered. She was warm. "Warm is good. You warm too." Emma set down the dough, wiped her hands, crouched to Grace's level. "I try to be. Would you like to feel—" She held out her arms. Grace hesitated. Then slowly she stepped into the embrace. Her small body was tense at first, rigid with fear and grief and the expectation of loss. But as Emma held her, the tension began to drain away. "Warm," Grace murmured against Emma's shoulder. "You warm." They stayed that way for a long moment, the storm raging outside the bread dough, waiting the world reduced to this simple comfort of human touch. When Grace finally pulled back, her eyes were wet, but her expression was calmer. "I help with bread." "I'd like that very much." They made bread together, Grace standing on a chair to reach the counter, her small hands covered in flour. She was clumsy, enthusiastic, terrible at kneading. Emma didn't correct her once. Nate came in at nightfall, covered in snow, face red from cold. He stamped his boots by the door and peeled off his frozen coat without looking at anyone. "The animals are settled," he said to the room at large. "Storm's not letting up. Might be days." "Supper's ready." Emma kept her voice neutral. "Soup and fresh bread." He glanced at the table set for 6, steam rising from the pot in the center. "I'll eat in the—" "No." The word came out sharper than Emma intended. Everyone froze. Even baby Ellie, drowsing in Tom's arms, opened her eyes. No, Emma repeated softer this time. It's our wedding day. We're going to eat together. As a family. Nate's jaw tightened. She could see him building his walls brick by brick, ready to retreat. Papa. Tom's voice was small. Please. Something cracked in Nate's expression. The walls trembled. He looked at his eldest son, then at the other children watching with barely concealed hope. Fine. He sat down heavily at the head of the table. Let's eat. The meal was awkward at first. Spoons scraping bowls, the howl of wind outside, nobody knowing what to say. Then Will spilled his soup. It wasn't a small spill. It was a catastrophic spill, the entire bowl tipping off the table and splashing across the floor, across Will's lap, across his face. Will's eyes went huge with terror. He scrambled backward, already apologizing, words tumbling over each other. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Please don't be mad. I'm sorry. The reaction was so extreme, so panicked, that Emma's heart clenched. This child expected punishment, expected anger. What had happened in this house to make a 5-year-old so afraid? But before she could respond, Grace did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a small laugh, rusty from disuse, but unmistakably a laugh. Then Tom made a sound that might have been a snort. Ellie gurgled happily, not understanding but responding to the shift in energy. And Nate's face transformed. For just a moment, the grief lifted, and Emma saw someone else underneath. Someone younger. Someone who remembered how to smile. It's just soup, son. His voice was rough but not angry. Soup cleans up. You're not mad. I've spilled plenty worse in my time. Will's terror melted into disbelief. Really? Once dropped an entire bucket of milk on your grandmother's best rug. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. This time, Tom actually laughed. You never told us that. Some things a man doesn't advertise. Emma watched this exchange with wonder. The ice was cracking. Slowly, painfully, but cracking. Nate was remembering he had children who needed more than food and shelter. Who needed a father. She cleaned up the spill while conversation continued, fragments of memories surfacing like debris after a flood. The time Tom got lost in the cornfield. The time Rosie tried to teach the chickens to sing. The time Grace ate an entire pie and got sick for 2 days. Stories about Maggie wove through the others, natural and painful and necessary. She was present at this table even in her absence. Maybe that was how it had to be. Rosie talked to the chickens. Emma asked, settling back into her seat. All the time. Nate's voice was distant, but not closed. She had names for each one, made up elaborate stories about their lives. Chicken politics, she called it. Emma looked at Rosie, who hadn't touched her soup, but was watching the conversation with something almost like interest. That sounds like a lot of responsibility, Emma said directly to her. Keeping track of all that chicken drama. No response. But Rosie's eyes met Emma's briefly before dropping away. Contact. Connection. Progress. After supper, Emma tackled the dishes while Nate put the children to bed. She could hear him upstairs, his low voice reading stories, the creak of floorboards as he checked each room. He was a good father. Damaged, distant, drowning, but good. The love was there, buried under layers of grief. It just needed excavating. She was drying the last pot when he came back down. They're settled. He stood in the doorway, uncertain. Tom's reading to Ellie. The others are in their rooms. Good. Silence stretched between them. The storm raged outside, but inside was worse somehow. This thick, uncomfortable awareness of their new relationship. I should check the fire in the... Sit down. Nate blinked. What? Sit down. We need to talk. He hesitated, then lowered himself into a chair at the table. Emma sat across from him. I need to understand some things, she said. About this family. About how things have been working. What kind of things? Why was Will so terrified when he spilled his soup? He acted like he expected to be beaten. Nate flinched. I've never hit my children. I didn't say you had, but something made him afraid. What? A long pause. Nate's hands clenched on the table. After Maggie died, I wasn't myself. For months. I barely functioned. The children, they took care of themselves mostly. Tom did what he could, but... He stopped, swallowed hard. I yelled, a lot, at nothing, at everything. The rage just came out of nowhere. I never hit them, but the yelling. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I know I scared them. I know I made things worse. Have you apologized? What? Have you told them you're sorry, that it wasn't their fault, that you were grieving and handled it badly? Nate stared at her like she'd suggested he fly to the moon. They're children. They don't need to hear about my failures. They're living with your failures every day. Will flinches when anyone raises their voice. Grace is terrified of abandonment. Tom has decided he has to be the adult because his father couldn't be. Emma kept her voice steady, not accusatory. Children aren't stupid, Mr. Callahan. They see everything. They understand more than we give them credit for, and right now they're carrying guilt that belongs to you. Guilt. They think they did something wrong. Something to make you pull away. Something to make you stop being their father. Emma leaned forward. You need to talk to them. Really talk. Tell them the truth about why you've been absent. Let them know it wasn't their fault. I don't know how. Then learn. Because that's what parents do. They learn. Nate was silent for a long time. The fire crackled. The wind screamed. The house groaned under the weight of snow and sorrow. Maggie knew how, he said finally. She always knew what to say, what to do. I just followed her lead. Without her. He shook his head. I'm lost, Emma. Completely lost. It was the first time he'd used her name. The first time he'd admitted weakness so directly. Then let me help you find your way back. He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, Emma saw something other than grief in his eyes. She saw hope. Fragile, uncertain, but real. Why? He asked. Why do you care? This was supposed to be a business arrangement. You take care of the children, I provide a home. That's all. Because your children are already climbing into my heart, and I can't help them fully, unless their father is there too. Emma held his gaze. Because I know what it's like to lose someone, and have to keep going anyway. Because you're not a bad man, Nathaniel Callahan. You're a broken man, and broken can be fixed. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? The wind howled. The fire popped. And something between them shifted, indefinable but real. Not love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But understanding. Partnership. The beginning of something that might with time become more. We should get some sleep, Nate said finally. Storm's going to keep us trapped here for a while. Yes. Your room? Maggie's room. Is it all right? I know it must be strange. It's fine. It wasn't fine. It was uncomfortable and haunted and wrong. But Emma was getting used to things that weren't fine. I could clear it out. Her things, if you want. Not yet. Emma surprised herself with the words. The children might want to keep some of it, and I think we should let them decide when they're ready. Nate nodded slowly. Maggie would have liked you. You don't know that. I do. She always said I was too stubborn, too closed off. She would have appreciated someone who pushes back. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You push back. Someone has to. He stood, extended his hand. Emma took it, and he helped her to her feet. Good night, Emma. Good night, Mr. Callahan. Nate. He released her hand. If we're going to do this, you should call me Nate. Good night, Nate. She climbed the stairs to the dead woman's room, lay down in the dead woman's bed, closed her eyes in the dead woman's darkness. But for the first time since she'd arrived, Emma felt something other than despair. She felt possibility. The storm raged for 3 days. By the second day, the children had exhausted their usual entertainments. By the third, they were climbing the walls. Emma adapted. She organized games. She told stories. She taught them to make paper snowflakes and string them across the mantel. She let Will bang on pots in the kitchen until even Rosie covered her ears. Small victories accumulated. Grace stopped sleeping with her thumb in her mouth. Will made it through an entire meal without spilling anything. Tom actually played a game with his siblings instead of supervising them. And Rosie? Rosie remained silent. But she was present now, watching, occasionally participating in activities without speaking. Once she even smiled at something. Will did a brief flicker that vanished as quickly as it appeared. But it had been there. Emma had seen it. On the third afternoon, while the wind still howled outside, Emma sat by the fire with Ellie in her lap. The baby was fussy teething, gnawing on Emma's finger with determined gums. "She likes you." Emma looked up. Nate stood in the kitchen doorway watching. "She's easy to like." "She looks like Maggie." His voice was rough. "Same hair, same eyes. Sometimes I look at her and—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. "It must be hard," Emma said quietly. "Seeing her every day. Being reminded. Hard doesn't begin to cover it." Nate crossed to the fireplace, stood staring into the flames. "Sometimes I hate myself for it. She's innocent. She didn't ask to be born the day her mother died. But every time I look at her, I remember Maggie screaming the blood the doctor's face when he came out of the room." "Have you held her?" "Really held her. Not just picked her up when necessary, but actually held her." Nate was silent. "Nate." "I can't." The words came out strangled. "Every time I try, I see Maggie's face. I hear her voice. He pressed his fist against the mantel. "I'm failing her. My own daughter. I know I am. But I don't know how to stop." Emma rose carefully, Ellie still in her arms. She crossed to stand beside him. "Take her." "What?" "Take her. Right now. Hold your daughter." "I can't." "You can." Emma's voice was firm but gentle. "You need to. She needs you to. This grief has stolen enough from this family. Don't let it steal this too." She held out the baby. Ellie gurgled happily, reaching for her father with chubby arms. Nate's hands shook as he took her. His face contorted with emotion, pain and love and terror all tangled together. Ellie patted his cheek. "Dada." Something broke in Nate's expression. A wall crumbling. A dam giving way. He pulled his daughter close, buried his face in her red curls, and his shoulders began to shake. He was crying. This granite man, this fortress of grief, was crying while holding his baby daughter. Emma stepped back, giving him space. But she didn't leave. She stood quietly witness to this moment of healing, this crack in the armor that might let light back in. When Nate finally lifted his head, his eyes were red, his face wet. But something had changed. Something fundamental. "She's so small," he whispered. "I forgot how small they are." "They grow fast. Don't miss it." He looked at Emma over his daughter's head, and for the first time she saw gratitude there. Real, raw, overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just be her father. Be all their father. That's enough." Nate nodded. He held Ellie closer, swaying slightly, and began to hum. A lullaby, Emma realized. Something Maggie had probably sung. The storm continued to rage outside. But inside, something was healing. It was only the beginning. Emma knew that. There would be setbacks, struggles, days when grief won and hope seemed foolish. But this moment, this small victory, this father holding his daughter, and finally beginning to let go of his guilt. This was what she'd come here for, even if she hadn't known it until now. The storm finally broke on the fourth morning. Emma woke to silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. No howling wind, no rattling windows, just stillness and pale light creeping through the frost-covered glass. She found Nate already in the kitchen, coffee in hand, staring out the window at a world transformed into white. "Roads won't be passable for days," he said without turning, "but the sky's clear. We can dig out." The children, still sleeping, let them rest. They'll need energy for what's coming. Emma poured herself coffee, stood beside him at the window. The snow had drifted against the barn in waves taller than a man. The fences had disappeared entirely. It was beautiful and terrifying and utterly isolating. "I need to check the cattle," Nate said. "Some of them were in the north pasture when the storm hit. If they didn't find shelter..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Dead cattle meant dead income. Dead income meant dead ranch. "Go. I'll manage here." He looked at her, really looked. And something passed between them. Something that wasn't quite trust, but was moving in that direction. "I'll be back by dark. Be careful." He nodded once, pulled on his coat, and was gone. Emma watched him wade through the snow toward the barn, his figure growing smaller against the endless white. Then she turned to face another day of holding this fractured family together. By mid-morning, the children were awake and restless. Tom insisted on helping dig out the front porch. Will wanted to play in the snow immediately. Grace clung to Emma's skirts, anxious despite the sunshine. And Rosie sat by the window watching the white world with those empty gray eyes. "Can we go outside?" Will bounced on his heels. "Please, please, please, please. After breakfast. And only if you bundle up properly." I'll bundle so much." Emma smiled despite herself. Will's enthusiasm was exhausting but contagious. Even Grace perked up slightly at the prospect of snow play. After breakfast, she bundled them into every piece of warm clothing she could find. Coats over coats, scarves wrapped until only eyes showed. Boots that had probably belonged to older children years ago. "Tom, you're in charge outside. Don't let anyone wander off. Don't let anyone eat yellow snow." "Why would anyone eat?" Will started. "Just don't." Emma held the door open. 1 hour, then back inside to warm up. They tumbled out like puppies released from a pen. Will immediately face-planted in a drift and came up laughing. Tom started building something that might have been a fort. Grace stood frozen at first, overwhelmed by so much white, then tentatively began making tiny footprints in a circle. Emma watched from the doorway, Ellie on her hip. The baby grabbed at the cold air with mittened hands, making sounds of pure delight. "Pretty," Grace called back to Emma. "The snow is pretty." "It is." Movement at the edge of Emma's vision. Rosie, still inside, had pressed her palm against the window glass. Her breath fogged the pain, and Emma watched her trace a shape in the condensation. A heart. Then she wiped it away and retreated to her rocking chair. Emma's chest tightened. Somewhere inside, that silent child feeling still existed. Trapped maybe, locked away, but present. "One step at a time," she murmured to Ellie. "We'll find our way in." The morning passed peacefully. The children played until their cheeks were red and their fingers numb. Then came inside for warm milk and stories by the fire. Emma taught them a rhyming game her mother had played with her. Will was terrible at it. Tom pretended to be too old, but participated anyway. Grace surprised everyone by rhyming snow, with glow, and giggling at her own cleverness. Rosie watched, always watching. Around noon, hoofbeats approached the house. Emma tensed, moving to the window. But it wasn't Nate returning early. A woman on horseback bundled against the cold, picking her way through the drifts. Behind her, a wagon with 2 figures on the seat. Company. Tom said, his voice carefully neutral. Who? The Prescotts. Mrs. Prescott and her daughter Abigail. The man driving is probably Mr. Henderson from the general store. Something in Tom's tone made Emma look at him sharply. Should I be worried? The boy hesitated. Mrs. Prescott has been interested in Papa since Mama died. She thought maybe her daughter. Understanding dawned. A rival, or someone who'd expected to be in Emma's position. I see. She's not nice. This from Grace, who'd appeared at Emma's side. She pinches when she hugs, and her cookies taste like dirt. Grace. They do. Emma smoothed her dress, tucked a stray hair behind her ear. Battle stations, then. She opened the door before they reached the porch, positioning herself squarely in the entrance, welcoming but territorial. Mrs. Prescott, what a surprise. Martha Prescott was perhaps 50, with a face that might have been handsome once, but had curdled into something sharp and assessing. Her daughter Abigail was younger, maybe 24, pretty in a conventional way, with calculating eyes that swept over Emma like she was measuring a rival. Mrs. Callahan. Martha's emphasis on the title was unmistakable. We came to check on the family after that dreadful storm. We were so worried when we heard Nathaniel had... Well, she didn't finish, but her meaning was clear. When we heard he'd married a stranger instead of my daughter. How kind. As you can see, we're all well. The children are inside. Would you like to come in? Emma stepped back just enough to allow entry, watching the women's faces as they took in the clean house, the fire burning cheerfully. The children gathered with curious expressions. My goodness. Martha's gaze catalogued everything. You've been busy. There's always work to be done. Indeed. Martha settled herself on the settee without being invited. Abigail perched beside her, arranging her skirts with practiced grace. We brought some things, supplies from the store. Mr. Henderson was kind enough to drive us. The man in question appeared in the doorway, arms full of packages. He was perhaps 40, with a round face and nervous eyes. Just put those in the kitchen, Emma directed. Thank you for bringing them. Happy to help, ma'am. Terrible storm. Terrible. He deposited the packages and retreated to the wagon, clearly eager to escape whatever was about to unfold. Martha was watching Emma with an expression that was almost amused. You're younger than I expected. So I've been told. 19, isn't it? Just a child yourself. Old enough to manage a household, 5 children, a man like Nathaniel. Martha's laugh was brittle. I'm sure you'll do your best, dear. Though experience does count for something in these matters. I'll manage. Will you? Martha leaned forward slightly. Do you know anything about ranching? About cattle prices, or breeding schedules, or how to negotiate with buyers? Do you know how to run a crew of ranch hands, how to manage the books? I know how to learn. Learning takes time. Time this ranch might not have. Martha's tone turned conspiratorial woman to woman. The truth is, Mrs. Callahan, this family needed more than a nursemaid. They needed someone who understood this life, someone who could truly partner with Nathaniel, not just keep his children fed. Someone like your daughter, you mean? The directness seemed to throw Martha off balance. Abigail's pretty face flushed pink. Abigail would have been an excellent choice. She grew up on a ranch. She knows this territory, these people. She could have helped Nathaniel in ways you simply can't. But Nathaniel didn't choose Abigail. He chose me. He chose money. Martha's veneer cracked slightly. Let's not pretend otherwise. He needed funds and you were available. That's not a marriage. That's a transaction. You're right. Emma kept her voice steady. It was a transaction. I'm not pretending otherwise. But I'm here now, and I intend to be worthy of this family, whether you approve or not. Martha stared at her. Abigail was examining her hands clearly, wishing she were anywhere else. You have spirit, Martha said finally. I'll give you that. But spirit doesn't run a ranch, child, and it doesn't keep a man warm at night. Mrs. Prescott. Emma's voice dropped to ice. I think you should leave. I beg your pardon. The children don't need to hear this conversation, and frankly, neither do I. Thank you for the supplies. Please give Mr. Henderson my regards. She stood and moved to the door, holding it open. The invitation to leave couldn't have been clearer. Martha rose slowly, her face mottled with anger and something that might have been respect. You're making a mistake, alienating the people who could help you. I'll take my chances. Come, Abigail. Martha swept toward the door, dignity intact despite the dismissal. We've done our Christian duty. What happens now is in God's hands. She paused in the doorway close enough that only Emma could hear her next words. He loved Maggie, more than life itself. You'll never replace her. You'll never even come close. Then she was gone, crunching through the snow toward the wagon, Abigail scurrying behind. Emma closed the door, leaned against it, let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She's mean. Emma looked down. Grace was staring up at her with fierce eyes. Some people are unhappy, and it makes them mean. I don't like her. You don't have to like her. You just have to be polite. You weren't polite. You told her to leave. Sometimes being polite means knowing when to end a conversation. Emma crouched to Grace's level. Did what she said bother you about your papa and mama? Grace's lower lip trembled. She said you can't replace mama. She's right. I can't. I would never try to. But you're here now. You're our... Grace struggled with the word. Our new mama. I'm your Emma. That's what I am. Not a replacement. Just something new. Something different. Grace considered this seriously. Then she nodded. I like Emma. I like Grace too. From the corner, a sound that made Emma's heart stop. Rosie had laughed. It was tiny, almost inaudible, more like a breath than a laugh. But Emma heard it, and Tom heard it, and they both froze like they'd witnessed a miracle, which in a way they had. Rosie's face immediately went blank again, the shutters slamming down. But it had happened. Sound had escaped from that silent prison. Emma didn't mention it, didn't draw attention, just continued her conversation with Grace as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But inside, hope bloomed like spring flowers pushing through snow. Nate returned at dusk, exhausted and grim. Emma met him at the door, taking his coat before he could protest. How bad? Lost 12 head. Found them frozen in a gully. The rest made it to the tree line, got some shelter. He sank into a chair by the fire. Could have been worse. But it wasn't good. No, it wasn't good. Emma brought him coffee, sat across from him. The children had been fed and put to bed, the house quiet, except for the settling sounds of old wood. We had visitors today. Nate's expression flickered. Who? Martha Prescott. And her daughter. He groaned. I should have warned you. She made her position clear, as did I. What did you say? I told her to leave. Nate's head came up. For a moment, Emma thought he might be angry. Instead, a sound escaped him that was almost a laugh. You told Martha Prescott to leave. She was being unkind, in front of the children. She's been trying to get Abigail married to me for 2 years. Longer, actually. Started about 6 months after Maggie died. Like there was a countdown clock on my grief. His voice turned bitter. She's not wrong about one thing, though. Abigail would have been a practical choice. She knows ranching. She knows this territory. Do you regret not choosing her? Nate looked at Emma for a long moment. The firelight played across his weathered features, softening them slightly. No, I don't. Why not? Because Abigail would have tried to be Maggie. She would have stepped into Maggie's place. Worn, Maggie's clothes raised Maggie's children as if Maggie never existed. That's what her mother wanted, a complete replacement. He shook his head. You're not trying to be Maggie. You're just trying to be yourself. That's what this family needs. Emma's chest tightened. I'm not sure what this family needs. I'm making it up as I go. Aren't we all? They sat in silence for a while, not uncomfortable, almost companionable. Something happened today, Emma said finally. With Rosie. Nate went still. What? She laughed. What? Just a small sound, barely audible. But she laughed. Grace was being fierce and protective, telling me how mean Mrs. Prescott was, and Rosie... She laughed. Nate's face crumpled. He pressed his hand over his eyes, shoulders shaking. Hey. Emma moved to kneel beside his chair. Hey, this is good news. I know. His voice was strangled. I know it is. I'd given up. The doctor said she might never speak again. That whatever broke in her when Maggie died might never heal. And I believed him. I stopped hoping. Maybe that was the problem. He lowered his hand. His eyes were wet. What do you mean? Children feel what we feel. If you gave up hope, maybe she felt that. Maybe she thought there was no point in trying. Emma chose her words carefully. But now things are different. The house feels different. You're different. Maybe she's starting to feel safe enough to come back. Because of you. Because of all of us. You held Ellie yesterday. Really held her. That mattered. Tom's starting to act like a child instead of a parent. Will's settling down. Grace is trusting again. Emma smiled slightly. Maybe Rosie sees all of that. Maybe she's deciding it's okay to rejoin the living. Nate reached out, took her hand. His grip was rough, calloused, desperate. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just keep trying. Keep being present. That's enough. He didn't let go of her hand, and Emma didn't pull away. They stayed like that for a long moment, connected by grief and hope, and something else neither was ready to name. 2 weeks passed. The snow settled, packed down by wind and cold into a hard crust that crunched under boots. The roads became passable again, and life resumed its patterns. Emma fell into the rhythm of the ranch. Up before dawn. Breakfast for 6. Lessons for the older children while the younger ones played. Lunch, chores, dinner. Stories by the fire. Bed. It was exhausting. It was relentless. It was somehow starting to feel like home. The children continued their slow healing. Tom smiled, more often laughed occasionally, even complained about chores like a normal 9-year-old. Will's boundless energy found productive outlets. Grace's thumb stayed out of her mouth for longer and longer periods. Ellie said, "Emma," clearly reaching for her new mother with sticky hands. And Rosie? Rosie remained silent. But she was present now. Engaged. She helped with simple tasks without being asked. She played with her siblings instead of just watching them. Once she brushed Emma's hair without prompting, her small fingers gentle and careful. She still didn't speak, but she was there. That was what mattered. She's not ready yet, Tom said one evening, finding Emma watching his sister. But she will be. She just needs more time. How do you know? Because she told me. Tom's voice was matter-of-fact. She doesn't talk out loud, but she talks to me. At night sometimes, when she thinks I'm asleep. Emma's heart clenched. What does she say? She's scared. Of a lot of things, but mostly she's scared that if she talks, it'll make it real. That Mama's really gone. Tom's young face was old with understanding. She thinks if she stays quiet, maybe it's all just a bad dream. Maybe she'll wake up and things will be normal again. Oh, Tom. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's how she feels. He shrugged. I told her it's okay, that we'll wait for her. That's all we can do, right? Wait. That's all we can do. But Emma was already thinking, planning. There had to be something more. Some way to reach that frightened child. Some way to show her that speaking wouldn't make the loss more real. It was already real. It had been real for 2.5 years. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as breakthroughs often do. It was late afternoon. Emma was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The children were scattered through the house. Tom was doing homework, Will was playing, Grace was napping, Ellie was in her cradle, and Rosie was at the window watching the snow. Emma didn't know what made her start singing. Maybe the silence was too heavy. Maybe she needed to fill it with something. But suddenly, she was humming, then singing softly a lullaby her mother used to sing. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." She kept working as she sang. Didn't look at Rosie, didn't make it about anything except the song. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Behind her, barely audible, a second voice joined in. "And if that mockingbird don't sing..." Emma's hands stilled, her breath caught. But she didn't turn, didn't stop, just kept singing. "Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring." Rosie's voice was rusty, uncertain. But it was there, real and present and alive. They sang together through the whole lullaby. Emma at the counter, Rosie at the window, both pretending this was normal, ordinary, not a miracle unfolding in a Montana kitchen. When the song ended, silence returned. Emma finally turned. Rosie was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Emma crossed the room, slowly knelt beside her. "Hi, Rosie." "Hi." The word was barely a whisper. "I'm glad you're back." Rosie's lower lip trembled. "I was scared." "I know, sweetheart. It's okay to be scared." "Mama died." "Yes, she did." "I couldn't stop it. I held her hand and she died anyway." "That wasn't your fault. There was nothing anyone could do." Rosie's small body began to shake. Emma gathered her close, held her, while 2.5 years of grief finally found release. "I miss her," Rosie sobbed. "I miss her so much." I know you do. I was afraid if I talked I'd forget her voice, so I stopped talking, so I could still hear her in my head." Emma's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. This child, this brave, broken, brilliant child. "You won't forget her," Emma whispered. "She's part of you. She always will be. Talking won't change that. Nothing will change that." Rosie cried until she had no tears left. Emma held her through all of it, rocking gently, murmuring comfort. When it was over, Rosie pulled back. Her face was blotchy, her eyes swollen, but something in her expression had changed, lightened. "Emma?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Can you teach me that song? All the words Mama used to sing it, but I forgot some parts." "I'll teach you every song I know." Rosie almost smiled. "Okay, it wasn't everything, it wasn't healed, but it was a door-opening light flooding into darkness. It was enough." When Nate came home that evening, Rosie met him at the door. "Hi, Papa." He froze, stared at his daughter like he was seeing a ghost. "Rosie." "I talked to Emma today. We sang a song." Nate dropped to his knees right there in the doorway, snow still on his boots, cold air rushing into the house. He pulled his daughter into his arms and held on like he'd never let go. Over his shoulder, Rosie's eyes found Emma's. "Thank you," she mouthed. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her own face. In the kitchen doorway, Tom watched with shining eyes. Will was bouncing with excitement. Grace had appeared from somewhere, thumb firmly in mouth, but smiling around it, and baby Ellie, blissfully unaware of the magnitude of the moment, threw a wooden block at the wall and laughed. This family, this broken, healing, impossible family. Emma hadn't chosen them. They hadn't chosen her. But somehow, against all odds, they were becoming something real, something that might, with time and patience and love, become whole again. The weeks after Rosie spoke changed everything. The house that had felt like a tomb began breathing again. Laughter echoed through rooms that had known only silence. Arguments broke out over toys and turns the normal chaos of childhood that Nate had thought lost forever. Emma watched it happen with wonder and exhaustion in equal measure. 5 children required constant attention, constant energy, constant love. Some days she fell into bed so tired she couldn't remember her own name. But she was happy. The realization crept up on her, slowly surprising her one morning as she stood at the stove making pancakes while Will argued with Tom about whose turn it was to feed the chickens, and Grace sang off-key in the corner, and Rosie actually joined in, and Ellie banged her spoon on the table, demanding attention. Happy. Despite everything. Despite how she'd gotten here. Maybe because of how she'd gotten here. "You're smiling." Emma looked up. Nate stood in the kitchen doorway, hat in hand, snow melting on his shoulders. He'd been out since before dawn checking on the cattle. "Am I?" "You are. It looks good on you." Something warm bloomed in Emma's chest. She turned back to the pancakes to hide it. "Breakfast is almost ready." "Smells good." He crossed to the stove, stood closer than necessary. "Everything smells good lately. Tastes good. Feels good." "Are you complimenting my cooking or my general presence?" "Both." His voice dropped. "Maybe especially your presence." Emma's hands stilled on the spatula. She could feel him behind her, the warmth of his body, the solidness of him. 2 months of marriage, and they'd barely touched beyond accidental brushes of hands, polite assistance with coats. This felt different. "Nate." "I know." He stepped back. "I know. Too fast. Too much. I just wanted you to know that He cleared his throat. "That things are better. Because of you. They're better because we're all trying. But you're the reason we started trying." He moved toward the table, the moment passing but not forgotten. "I'll wash up. Call me when it's ready." He left. Emma exhaled slowly, her heart beating faster than it should. Something was shifting between them. Something that felt like more than partnership, more than convenience, more than necessity. Something that felt dangerously like love. The church social came in late January. Emma had heard about it from Ruth Patterson, who'd stopped by with eggs and gossip the week before. "Everyone will be there," Ruth had said, her eyes bright with meaning. "Everyone will want to meet the new Mrs. Callahan. Are you ready for that?" Emma wasn't ready, but she was going anyway. She dressed carefully in her best dress, one she'd found in Maggie's trunk, and altered to fit. It was blue, simple, but elegant, the kind of dress a rancher's wife might wear to make a good impression. The children were scrubbed and presentable. Tom in his father's old church clothes, too big but clean. Will, with his red hair, actually combed for once. Grace in a dress with a ribbon Emma had added. Rosie speaking now, but still quiet in soft gray that matched her eyes. And Ellie in Emma's arms dressed in white and looking like an angel. Nate appeared at the foot of the stairs as Emma descended. He'd shaved, combed his hair, put on a suit that fit better than the one he'd worn at their wedding. He looked handsome, Emma realized with a jolt. Really handsome when grief wasn't carving his face into stone. "You look..." He stopped, swallowed. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. You look nice too." "I clean up all right when I try." A ghost of a smile. "Ready to face the lions." "Are there many lions in Willow Springs?" "Martha Prescott and her kind. They've been waiting for this, waiting to judge." "Then let's not keep them waiting." The church was packed. Every family in the territory seemed to have turned out for the social, eager to see the mysterious bride who'd appeared in the middle of winter and somehow brought the Callahan family back to life. Emma felt their eyes on her the moment she walked in, assessing, judging, wondering. Martha Prescott sat in the front row, Abigail beside her. Martha's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes tracked Emma's every movement. "Mrs. Callahan." The Reverend approached with outstretched hands. "How wonderful to see you. And the children? My goodness, don't they look well?" "Thank you, Reverend. I've heard remarkable things. Simply remarkable. The whole town is talking about the changes at Silver Creek. We're just doing our best. And your best is clearly quite good." He beamed at the children. "Rosie, my dear, how lovely to see you smiling." Rosie ducked behind Emma's skirts, but she was indeed smiling. The social was a blur of introductions, small talk, assessing glances. Emma met ranchers and their wives, shopkeepers, and their children, the doctor and the schoolteacher, and what seemed like half the population of Montana Territory. Everyone was polite. Some were genuinely warm. A few were openly skeptical. And Martha Prescott waited. Emma knew the confrontation was coming. She could feel it building like a storm on the horizon. When Martha finally approached during the refreshment break, Emma was almost relieved to get it over with. "Mrs. Callahan, you've certainly made an impression." "Mrs. Prescott, lovely to see you again." "Is it?" Martha's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I wonder. We didn't exactly part as friends. I apologize if I was rude. It was a difficult day." "Every day is difficult at Silver Creek from what I hear. That's a lot for a 19-year-old to handle." "I'm managing. For now." Martha moved closer, lowering her voice. "But winter isn't over. Spring calving is coming. Then summer haying. Then fall roundup. Year after year after year. This life breaks strong women, Mrs. Callahan. Women with experience. Women who know what they're doing." Is there a point to this conversation? The point is that Nathaniel Callahan needs a partner, not a nursemaid. And eventually he's going to realize that. Martha's smile sharpened. "When he does, my Abigail will be waiting. She's patient. She knows how to wait for what she wants." "Then she may be waiting a very long time." "Perhaps. Perhaps not." Martha patted Emma's arm with false sympathy. "Enjoy the social, dear. Make the most of your moment in the sun." She swept away, leaving Emma trembling with anger and something uncomfortably close to fear. Because Martha wasn't entirely wrong. Emma didn't know this life. Not really. She was learning as she went, making mistakes, figuring things out by trial and error. What if it wasn't enough? What if Nate woke up one day and realized he'd made a mistake? Don't let her get to you. Emma turned. Nate stood behind her, his expression dark. "You heard. Enough." He stepped closer. "Martha Prescott is a bitter woman who can't accept that her plans didn't work out. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know what you've done for this family." "Maybe she's right, though. Maybe I'm not." "Stop." Nate took her hand right there in the middle of the church social where everyone could see. "You're exactly what this family needs. What I need. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." His hand was warm around hers, strong and steady and sure. "Nate, people are watching. Let them watch." His eyes held hers. "Let them see that I chose you. That I'm choosing you. Every day." Emma's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that this isn't just an arrangement anymore. Not for me." His voice dropped. "I know I'm not good at this. I know I've been distant and difficult and half-dead for too long. But Emma, you've woken something in me. Something I thought was gone forever." "Nate, I'm falling in love with you." The words came out rough, torn from somewhere deep. "I didn't expect it. I didn't want it. But it's happening anyway, and I need you to know." The room seemed to fade away. The chatter, the music, the watching eyes. Nothing existed except Nate's face, his hand in hers, his words hanging between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Not yet. I just needed you to know that you're not just convenient. You're not just useful. You're—" He struggled for words. "You're everything, Emma. Everything I didn't know I needed." A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. She didn't bother to wipe it away. "I've been falling too," she whispered. "I didn't want to. I was so angry when I came here, so scared. I promised myself I wouldn't let you in. And now I can't imagine being anywhere else, with anyone else." Nate's hand tightened on hers. "Then stay. Not because of the arrangement, not because of duty or obligation. Stay because you want to, because this is your home, because we're your family. We're in the middle of a church social. I don't care. People are definitely watching now. Let them." He brought her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "Let the whole territory watch. Let Martha Prescott choke on it." A laugh escaped Emma, surprised and genuine. "That's not very Christian of you." "I never claimed to be a saint." They stood there, hands clasped, while the social swirled around them. Emma could feel the stares, the whispers, the speculation. She didn't care. For the first time since she'd signed that contract in the attorney's office, she felt free. Not trapped by circumstance, not bound by necessity. Choosing. "Take me home," she said quietly. "Take me home to our children." Nate's smile was like sunrise breaking over mountains. "Yes, ma'am." The ride home was quiet but charged. The children fell asleep one by one, worn out from excitement and sugar. Nate drove the wagon with Emma beside him, their shoulders touching, neither pulling away. "I meant what I said," he murmured as the ranch came into view. "Every word." "I know. I'm still broken, Emma, still carrying things I don't know how to put down, but I want to try. I want to be the man you deserve, the man Maggie would have wanted me to become." "You already are that man. You just couldn't see it." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've watched you with your children. The way you held Ellie when you finally let yourself. The way you cried when Rosie spoke. The way you look at Tom when you think no one's watching, so proud and so scared for him." Emma turned to face him. "A broken man doesn't love that deeply. A broken man doesn't try that hard." Nate's jaw tightened. "I don't deserve you. Maybe neither of us deserves what we've been given, but we have it anyway. So let's stop questioning and start living." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. The children stirred but didn't wake. In the moonlight, the snow glittered like scattered diamonds. "Emma." "Yes." "Can I kiss you properly, I mean? Not like at the wedding." Her heart hammered. "Yes." He leaned toward her slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She didn't. The kiss was gentle at first. Tentative. Two people who'd been hurt learning to trust again. But then, something shifted, deepened, and Emma felt herself falling into it, into him, into this new life that suddenly felt less like a prison sentence and more like a gift. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nate pressed his forehead to hers. "I should get the children inside." "You should." Neither moved. "Emma." "Yes." "Thank you for choosing us, for staying, for everything." "Thank you for letting me in." He kissed her again, briefly, then climbed down to gather the sleeping children. Emma watched him carry them inside one by one, this man she'd married out of desperation, this man she was somehow impossibly falling in love with. The last to go was Ellie, cradled against Nate's chest, her red curls bright against his dark coat. He paused at the door, looked back at Emma, still sitting in the wagon. "Coming." "In a minute. I just need a moment." He nodded and went inside. Emma sat alone in the cold, looking up at the stars scattered across the Montana sky. 3 months ago she'd been a girl in Wyoming with dreams of teaching school. Now she was a wife, a mother, a rancher's partner. She should miss her old life. She should resent how she'd gotten here. Instead, she felt grateful. For the storm that had trapped them together, for the children who'd claimed her heart, for the man who was learning to love again. For this second chance, neither of them had expected. The door opened. Nate stood silhouetted against the warm light from within. "It's cold out here. Come inside." Emma smiled. "I'm coming." She climbed down from the wagon and walked toward the house, toward the light, toward her family, toward home. The weeks that followed were different. Nate no longer retreated to the barn after dinner. He sat with Emma by the fire, talking, sharing slowly, revealing pieces of himself he'd kept locked away for years. He told her about his childhood, about his father, who'd built this ranch from nothing, about his mother, who'd died when he was 12, about the years of learning to survive in a hard country. He told her about Maggie. Not just the grief of losing her, but the joy of loving her. How they'd met as children. How he'd known even then that he would marry her someday. How their wedding day had been the happiest of his life. "I felt guilty," he admitted one night, his head in Emma's lap, her fingers running through his hair, after she died. "I felt guilty for still being alive, like I should have died with her. That's not how it works." "I know, now." He turned to look up at her. "You showed me that. Living isn't a betrayal of the dead. It's an honor to them. Maggie would want you to be happy. She would want you to be happy too. She would have liked you, Emma. She would have approved. You don't know that. I do." He sat up, taking her hands. "Maggie was fierce and practical and full of love, just like you. She would have looked at what you've done for this family and she would have said, 'Well done.'" Emma's eyes burned. "I wish I could have known her. Part of her is in every one of those children. You know her through them." It was true, Emma realized. She'd come to know Maggie through Tom's responsibility, through Rosie's questions, through Will's energy, through Grace's tenderness, through Ellie's laughter. The woman was present in her absence, woven into the fabric of the family she'd left behind. "I don't want to replace her," Emma said softly. "I never did." "You haven't. You've added to her, built on what she started." Nate cupped her face in his hands. "This family has two mothers now, one who gave them life, and one who taught them how to live it." He kissed her then, deep and tender and full of promise. That night, Emma didn't go to Maggie's old room. She went to Nate's room instead, their room now. It was her choice, her decision, given freely without obligation or expectation. And when morning came, she woke in his arms, sunlight streaming through the window, children's voices echoing through the house, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. Not because she'd been sold here, not because she'd had no choice, but because she'd chosen this man, this family, this life, and it had chosen her right back. Spring began to whisper at the edges of winter. The snow softened. The days lengthened. New life stirred beneath the frozen ground. Emma stood on the porch watching the children play in the muddy yard and felt something stir within herself too. Something new, something unexpected. Her hand drifted to her stomach. "You look like you have a secret." She turned. Nate leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes warm. "Maybe I do." "Want to share?" Emma smiled, walked toward him, took his hand and placed it where hers had been. "Maybe in a few months." She watched understanding dawn on his face. Watched joy and terror and wonder chase each other across his features. "Emma, are you?" "I think so. It's early, but—" He swept her into his arms, lifted her off her feet, buried his face in her hair. "God, oh God, Emma. Is that happy or scared?" "Both. Definitely both." He pulled back to look at her. "Are you okay? Are you happy? I know we didn't plan this, and after what happened to Maggie—" "I'm terrified," Emma admitted. "But I'm also—" She searched for the word. "Complete. Like this is what was supposed to happen all along. Like everything that brought me here was leading to this moment." Nate kissed her, deeply, thoroughly, with all the love he'd been storing up for years, with no one to give it to. "Papa." Will's voice interrupted them. "Papa Tom's throwing mud at me." "I am not?" He threw it first. "Did not." "Did too." Nate sighed against Emma's lips. Duty calls. Go. Save them from each other. He jogged toward the yard, already separating combatants, his voice a blend of authority and exasperation that Emma had come to love. She stayed on the porch, hand on her stomach, watching her family. Her family. The word still felt new and miraculous. Grace appeared at her side, slipping her small hand into Emma's. "Mama, Emma, why are you crying?" Emma hadn't realized she was. She wiped her cheeks, smiled down at the little girl who'd claimed her heart from the first moment. "Because I'm happy, sweetheart. So happy it spills out sometimes." "That's a good kind of crying. The best kind." Grace leaned against Emma's leg, watching her brothers and father wrestle in the mud. "Mama, Emma." "Yes, baby. I'm glad you came." Emma's heart clenched. "Me too, Grace. Me too." They stood together on the porch, the late winter sun warming their faces, watching the family they'd both been gifted by chance and circumstance, and something that felt very much like fate. The girl who'd been sold for $300, the children who'd lost their mother, the man who'd buried his heart in a grave. All of them, somehow impossibly finding their way back to life, finding their way to love, finding their way home. Spring arrived with a vengeance. Snow melted into rivers that carved through the landscape, turning the ranch into a muddy mess that tracked through the house no matter how often Emma scrubbed the floors. The cattle grew restless, sensing the change in season, and Emma's belly grew rounder with each passing week. "You need to rest more," Nate said it every morning, watching her bustle through breakfast preparations. "I need to keep this household running." "The household can survive without perfect biscuits." "The household cannot survive without fed children." He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her swollen middle, pressed a kiss to her neck. "At least let Tom help more. He's capable." "Tom is 9 years old. He's already carrying too much." "Then let me help." Emma turned in his arms, looked up at this man who'd become her whole world. "You have a ranch to run. I have a wife to take care of. Nate, I'm not losing you." His voice turned fierce. "Not to exhaustion, not to overwork, not to anything I can prevent. Do you understand me?" She understood. The fear lived in him constantly now, growing alongside the baby in her womb. He watched her like she might disappear at any moment. Checked on her throughout the day. Woke in the night just to make sure she was still breathing. The ghost of Maggie's death haunted them both. "I'm not going anywhere," Emma said softly. "I promise." "You can't promise that." "I can promise to be careful. I can promise to tell you if something feels wrong. I can promise that we'll get through this together." He pressed his forehead to hers. Together. Always. The children had been told about the baby, of course. Their reactions varied wildly. Tom tried to hide his fear behind practical questions about sleeping arrangements and responsibilities. Will was convinced the baby would be a boy who could play with him. Grace wanted to name it Butterfly regardless of gender. Rosie drew pictures of a family with 6 children instead of 5, her gray eyes thoughtful. And Ellie, too young to understand, simply patted Emma's belly and said baby with great authority before wandering off to play. "Do you want a boy or a girl?" Grace asked one afternoon, her small hand resting on Emma's stomach, feeling for kicks. "I want a healthy baby, that's all." "But if you could pick," Emma considered. "A girl might be nice. Then you'd have a little sister to teach things to." Grace's face lit up. "I could teach her everything, how to brush hair and name chickens and make paper snowflakes. She'd be lucky to have you as a teacher." "What about Rosie? She could teach her too." Emma looked at Rosie, who was listening from her spot by the window. "What do you think, Rosie? What would you teach a baby sister?" Rosie was quiet for a moment. Then softly, "How to be brave, even when you're scared." Emma's heart clenched. That's the most important lesson of all. April brought warmer days and Emma's mother to visit. Catherine Whitmore arrived on the stage from Wyoming, thinner than Emma remembered, older, but with eyes that shone when she saw her daughter's swollen belly. Look at you. Catherine gathered Emma into her arms as carefully as if she were made of glass. Look at what you've become. Mama, I'm just pregnant, not transformed. You're both. Catherine pulled back, studying Emma's face. You're happy. Truly happy. I can see it. I am. And the husband, he treats you well. He treats me like I'm precious. Tears welled in Catherine's eyes. I was so afraid. When we sent you away, I was so afraid I'd never see you happy again. You did what you had to do. I did what I thought was right. It's not the same thing. Catherine wiped her eyes. But seeing you now, seeing this family you've built, maybe it was right after all. Maybe God had a plan we couldn't see. The visit lasted a week. Catherine met the children, fell in love with each of them, spent hours talking with Nate about the ranch, the future, the baby on the way. She brought news from home too, about Samuel doing well in school, about Patience growing tall, about the family finding their footing again. They miss you, Catherine said on her last night sitting with Emma by the fire after everyone else had gone to bed. We all do. I miss them too. But this is my home now. I know. Catherine took Emma's hand. I came here prepared to take you back if you weren't happy. I had a whole speech prepared about how you'd suffered enough and deserved to come home. And now I see that you are home, that these children need you, that this man loves you in a way I've rarely seen. Catherine squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Emma, prouder than I've ever been of anything. I was so angry when I left, so scared. I know. I thought you'd betrayed me, sold me, thrown me away. I would have done anything else if I could have, but there was nothing else. I know that now. Emma met her mother's eyes. I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago, actually. I just needed you to know. Catherine broke down, then sobbing in a way Emma had never seen, years of guilt finally finding release. Emma held her mother the way Catherine had held her through childhood fevers and nightmares and heartbreaks. Some circles, she realized, took a long time to close. The baby came in May, on a morning when the world was bright with new growth and the air smelled of possibility. Emma woke before dawn with pains that she recognized immediately. She lay still for a moment, breathing through them, gathering her courage. Nate. He was awake instantly. Is it time? I think so. He moved faster than she'd ever seen him move. Dressed, woke Tom sent him racing to fetch the doctor from town. Built up the fire-heated water, gathered every clean cloth in the house. The children, Emma gasped between contractions. They shouldn't see. I'll have Tom take them to the Pattersons when he gets back. Nate gripped her hand. Everything's going to be fine. Do you hear me? Everything's going to be fine. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe it with all her heart. But Maggie had probably believed it too. The hours that followed blurred together in a haze of pain and fear. The doctor arrived calm and competent. Ruth Patterson came to help, her steady hands and steady voice, a comfort. Nate stayed by Emma's side, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement, refusing to leave, even when the doctor suggested he might want to wait outside. I'm not going anywhere, Nate said fiercely. I wasn't with Maggie. I couldn't be. But I'm here now. I'm staying. Emma squeezed his hand through another contraction. I love you. I love you too. Now stop talking and push. She pushed. For hours it felt like, until she had nothing left, until she was sure she couldn't do it anymore, until she was ready to give up. Then suddenly, finally, a cry split the air. It's a girl, the doctor announced. A healthy baby girl. Emma sobbed with relief, with joy, with exhaustion. The doctor placed the baby in her arms, this tiny, perfect creature who'd fought her way into the world. Dark hair, Nate's gray-blue eyes, a rosebud mouth already searching for food. Hello, sweetheart, Emma whispered. Welcome home. Nate leaned over them, tears streaming down his weathered face. She's beautiful. Emma, she's so beautiful. She is. What do we name her? Emma looked at this man who'd become her everything. This man who'd lost so much and somehow found the courage to love again. Catherine, she said. For my mother. And Maggie. For yours. Nate's breath caught. Catherine Margaret Callahan. Is that all right? It's perfect. He pressed a kiss to Emma's forehead, then to the baby's. It's absolutely perfect. The children came home that evening, tiptoeing into the bedroom one by one to meet their new sister. Tom was solemn and protective, already planning how he would help take care of her. Will was disappointed she wasn't a boy, but grudgingly admitted she was pretty cute. Grace was immediately in love, declaring that Butterfly was a better name, but Catherine was okay too. Rosie held the baby with careful wonder, her gray eyes bright with tears she didn't try to hide. And Ellie, now 3 years old, climbed onto the bed beside Emma and announced that the baby was hers, and nobody else could have her. She belongs to all of us, Emma explained. We'll share her. Ellie considered this. I share a little. That's very generous of you. Nate gathered his family around the bed, all 7 of them now, this impossible collection of wounded hearts that had somehow found their way to healing. He looked at Emma, at the baby in her arms, at the children crowding close, and something in his expression finally completely broke open. Not grief this time. Not pain. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated, overwhelming joy. I don't deserve this, he said quietly. I don't deserve any of you. You deserve everything, Emma told him. You deserve love and happiness and a house full of chaos and noise. You deserve to wake up every morning knowing you're not alone. I don't feel alone anymore. For the first time since Maggie died, I don't feel alone. Emma reached for his hand. You never have to feel alone again. That night, after the children were finally in bed and the house had settled into quiet, Nate sat by Emma's bedside watching her nurse the baby. I was wrong, he said softly. When you first came here, I told you I couldn't love again, that everything I had was in a grave. You were grieving. I was afraid. There's a difference. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I thought loving again would mean forgetting Maggie, betraying her memory. But that's not how it works, is it? No, it's not. Love doesn't replace, it adds. He looked at Emma with wonder. I love Maggie still. I always will. But I love you too. Differently maybe, but just as much. I know. And this baby. His voice cracked. This baby who never should have been born. This miracle that came out of an arrangement neither of us wanted. How did this happen, Emma? How did we end up here? I don't know. Emma stroked the baby's dark hair. But I'm grateful. Every day I'm grateful. Even for how it started, the contract, your father's debts, all the things that forced you here. Emma thought about it. Really thought about it for the first time in months. Yes, she said finally, even for that. Because without all of it, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have Tom and Rosie and Will and Grace and Ellie. I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have her. She looked down at the baby in her arms. Some things break us, and some things break us open. I think that's the difference. Nate rose, came to sit beside her on the bed. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. You already do. You just have to believe it. Summer came to Silver Creek Ranch with long days and hard work and more happiness than any of them had dared to hope for. Emma watched her family grow and change through those golden months. Tom started acting like a child again, playing and laughing, letting go of responsibilities that had never been his to carry. Will channeled his energy into helping with the animals, becoming a genuine asset to the ranch. Grace's fears faded into memory, replaced by confidence and joy. Rosie bloomed into a chatterbox who asked questions about everything, making up for years of silence. And Ellie embraced her role as big sister with all the bossiness a 3-year-old could muster. Baby Catherine grew too fat and happy and beloved by everyone who met her. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubbornness and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. "I can't believe this is my life," Emma said one evening standing on the porch with Nate while the children played in the yard. "A year ago, I was in Wyoming, dreaming of becoming a school teacher. Now look at me." "Any regrets?" "Not one. Not even about the teaching." Emma smiled. "I teach 5 children every day, 6 soon when Catherine's old enough." She leaned against his shoulder. "This is better than any schoolhouse could ever be." "You know you could still teach if you wanted. The town needs a schoolmarm. Mrs. Patterson mentioned it last week." "Maybe someday, when the children are older." Emma looked out at the land spreading before them, the mountains rising in the distance, the sky turning gold with sunset. "For now, I have everything I need." Nate pulled her close. "So do I." They stood together as the sun went down, watching their children, their ranch, their impossible, improbable, precious life. In September, a letter came from Wyoming. Samuel had been accepted to a teacher's college in Denver. Patience had won a prize for her arithmetic. Catherine was doing well, healthy and hopeful, looking forward to visiting again in the spring. Emma read the letter aloud to Nate over breakfast, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Your family's thriving," he said. "They are." She wiped her eyes. "We all are. The money helped. What your father's debts bought." "I know." Emma looked at him across the table, this man who'd been a stranger, then a partner, then a friend, then a lover, now a husband in every sense of the word. "It bought more than survival, Nate. It bought second chances, for all of us." "Pretty good investment then." "The best investment anyone ever made." The first anniversary of their wedding came in November. 1 year since Emma had signed that contract in the attorney's office. 1 year since she'd climbed onto a stagecoach, not knowing what waited at the other end. Nate surprised her with a party. The whole town came, it seemed like. Ruth Patterson and her husband. The doctor who'd delivered Catherine. Even Martha Prescott showed up, though she spent most of the evening in the corner looking sour. 1 year, Ruth said, pulling Emma into a hug. "And look what you've done. That man is a different person. Those children are thriving. You've worked a miracle, Emma Callahan." "I just showed up and tried my best." Sometimes that's what miracles are. Showing up and trying your best when everything seems impossible. Late that night, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, Nate led Emma outside. Snow was falling softly, the first of the season, dusting the ground in white. "A year ago, I stood in this yard and watched a stranger climb out of a wagon," he said. "I told myself it was just an arrangement, just business, that I'd never feel anything for you except gratitude. And now I can't imagine my life without you in it." He took her hands. "You saved me, Emma. You saved all of us, not just the children, but me. I was dying slowly day by day, and you brought me back to life. You brought yourself back. I just gave you a reason to try. Same thing. Maybe." He pulled something from his pocket. A ring. Simple gold, nothing fancy, but gleaming in the moonlight. "This was my mother's," Nate said. "My father gave it to her on their wedding day. She left it for my wife, but He stopped. "I gave Maggie a different ring. Her mother's ring. This one I kept. I didn't know why. I think I was waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you." He slipped the ring onto her finger next to the plain band he'd given her at their hurried wedding ceremony. "This makes it real, Emma. This makes you mine. Not because of a contract, not because of money or debts or necessity. Because I love you. Because I choose you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life waking up beside you." Emma looked at the ring on her finger. At this man standing before her in the falling snow. At the house behind them full of sleeping children and warmth and love. "I choose you too," she whispered. "Today and tomorrow and every day after that." He kissed her, then soft and sweet snowflakes melting on their skin. When they finally went inside, Emma paused at the door to look back at the night. A year ago, she'd been a girl sold for $300 to save her family from ruin. She'd arrived at this ranch, terrified, angry, certain her life was over. She'd been wrong. Her life hadn't ended that day in the attorney's office. It had just begun. Some stories start with once upon a time and end with happily ever after. But the best stories, the truest stories, don't really end at all. They just keep going chapter after chapter, generation after generation. Love building on love until no one remembers where it started anymore. Emma Callahan's story was like that. It started with a bargain and became something sacred. It started with desperation and became devotion. It started with strangers and became family. And years later, when people asked how Silver Creek Ranch had become such a happy place, when they wondered about the woman who'd turned a house of grief into a home of joy, the answer was always the same. She showed up. She tried her best. She refused to give up on love, even when love seemed impossible. That was the whole secret. That was everything. The girl who was sold for $300 found something money could never buy. She found where she belonged.